So, now that you have a decent understanding of how to manage a lane, it is time to learn a bit more about the jungle's functionality, or to be more precise, how to manage the jungle buffs. Let's start with the basics. There are three types of jungle buffs that are protected by powerful jungle monsters. Each buff grants you specific benefits. Once a player has acquired such a buff, it lasts for 2.5 minutes, or 3 minutes with Runic Affinity. Upon death, all buffs currently on you will be transferred to the player who landed the killing blow onto you, and the duration of the buffs are refreshed. Let's start with blue. The blue buff is held by the Ancient Golem and can be found either here or here. This buff boosts your mana regeneration by 25 plus 0.5% of your max mana and grants you 20% cooldown reduction. As you can imagine, this buff is very helpful for champions that use a lot of abilities and burn their mana quickly. Depending on what champion your team has in mid, the jungler has to decide how early he wants to give this buff to the mid laner. In most cases, the jungler takes the first blue buff and gives away all the later ones. If your team has a jungler that does not use mana himself, he can think about donating the first one already, although if he gives it away, he should be sure of his game, as the cooldown reduction speeds up his jungling due to the cooldown reduction. Next up is red. The red buff is held by the Lizard Elder and spawns either here or here. This buff gives you yet again two benefits. Whenever you attack with a non-ability attack, the target gets a damage over time effect that deals 10 to 44 true damage. This damage is not very high, but it can sometimes be that little advantage that you need. The more important aspect of the red buff, though, is its slowing debuff. Whenever you hit an enemy with a normal attack, he or she gets slowed by 8, 16 or 24% if it was a melee attack, and 5, 10 or 15% if you attack from afar. The percentage applied depends on your level. The red buff belongs to the jungle for the first part of the game, but once the lanes start to break up and the roaming phase starts, you should try to feed this buff to your AD carry as much as possible, as he has an easier time applying it to the enemy champions due to his range advantage. The last buff, the so-called Baron buff, works a bit differently from the others. The Baron buff always has a fixed duration of 4 minutes, whether you have Runic Affinity or not. Also, every member of your team gets this buff, not only the player that landed the killing blow. And the last difference is that you do not transfer this buff to the champion that kills you. It simply disappears. Doing Baron attempts is feasible when you and your teammates start to reach level 13 to 14 and you're getting good equipment. Beforehand, I wouldn't really bother. A successful Baron run gives your team a huge advantage, but this does not mean that you are invincible. Upon death, Baron Nashor grants the whole team that killed him the following benefits: up to 40 ability power, up to 40 attack damage, 3% of your maximum health as health regeneration all 5 seconds, and 1% of your mana as mana regeneration per 5 seconds. This is absolutely huge. Being able to grab the Baron buff gives your team a massive advantage. If you were on about equal footing with the enemy team beforehand, they cannot engage you in open ground now. What this means is that you are able to roam across the map far more freely. Because of that, you can grab a free dragon if he's up, kick down 1 or 2 towers, or pressure down even an inhibitor. Make sure to stay together though, because you can still be easily picked off when being caught off guard. That is all that you need to know about jungle buffs for now. Should you wish to learn more, simply click on the annotation in the top right hand corner. This will bring you back to the menu where you can choose from my whole collection of League of Legends beginner guides.